Okay, what's up, guys? I'm gonna mix it up today a little bit. I want to do a Yu Yu Hakusho video for once. I got another video that I wanted to do talking about Ultimate Gohan, but that can be in a separate video. I'll post that later on today. But uh, that's supposed to be ranking the Yu Yu Hakusho arcs. If anybody hadn't seen it, well, go watch it. That's all I can tell you. It's a good show. If you had seen it, it's one of the classics, one of the legends. So let's dive into it. I think it's a good one. I hadn't seen it yet. I hadn't seen the video ranking the arcs. Um, but for people that hadn't seen it, um, we can go over the arcs and stuff like that. But it's still not as good as watching it. You know, actually watching the series because it's a darn good series. It's one of the originals. I think it even came out before Dragon Ball Z. Some of the actual Dragon Ball Z voice actors are in Yu Yu Hakusho because you notice Yusuke, the voice of Yusuke actually plays Raditz and he plays Dende in Dragon Ball Z. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yu Yu Hakusho is undoubtedly
Oh yeah, and Kuwabara actually is played by the Christopher Sabat, same person that plays Vegeta. Something else too, ain't it?
a classic and one of the greatest anime of all time. I've already covered the series from beginning to end, dissecting the themes and the writing of each arc. But in this video, we're going to be looking at both the good and the bad of each arc to rank them from worst to best. Now conventionally, Yu Yu Hakusho's story is split up into 4 different arcs: the Spirit Detective arc, the Dark Tournament arc, the Chapter Black arc, and the Three Kings arc. But personally, I consider Spirit Detective an overarching saga that contains multiple arcs within it, because these stories are self-contained and have nothing to do with each other. So
Well,
instead
the Spirit Detective arc is, eh, I kind of put that a little bit lower. Because I don't know, it was Spirit Detective arc started out kind of slow. To me, it did. I liked it. I still enjoyed it. The whole thing. It just started out kind of slow because Yusuke had kind of died, and they was trying to bring him back to life and all that. It was a little slow for me, but it was still good. It still kept me wanting to watch it and all that stuff because it was still a good anime. Uh, but it was just compared. If you compare it to the rest of the arcs, it's kind of slow because you got the Dark Tournament arc was one of my favorite. The Dark Tournament arc went hard, man. Dark Tournament arc was hardcore. The freaking uh, Sensui when he had to fight Sensui, that was one of those are my two favorites, all time favorites. I like the Spirit Detective arc, but I can't put it at number one. And it's still better than anything in Super though. The first episode of Yu Yu Hakusho is better than anything in Super.
of 4, we're going to be ranking these 8 arcs from worst to best. So at the very bottom of the list, the only arc that I would consider bad in Yu Yu Hakusho, we have the Four Saint Beasts arc, or the Beasts of Maze Castle as it's called as well. In this arc, in order to stop a horde of demon bugs from infiltrating Yusuke's city, Yusuke and Co have to go to Demon City to defeat the Four Saint Beasts. This was easily the weakest arc in the entire series, and this was the arc that made me almost want to drop the anime when I was first watching it. There are some redeeming
Wait a minute.
aspects about it. First of all, this is the first arc where we get to see the iconic 4 main characters team up.
Well, I can't agree with. Excuse me. I can't agree with that one. You sleeping on the Force. Well, that's his opinion. He has a right to his opinion. I like the Four Saint Beasts. Not gonna lie. It just started to me. This whole Spirit Detective arc started out kind of slow, but the Four Saint Beasts is when it was starting to pick up to me. I actually liked that. I actually liked that arc because it started to pick up a little bit. Going back and watching it, some of the way the fights was done kind of reminded me of some things I saw in Dragon Ball Z. Uh, but I don't know. It's just I think I like the Four Saint Beast. I don't know. It's just my personal thing, I guess.
And what's kind of interesting is that unlike Kurama, Togashi never intended on Hiei becoming a good guy from the start. In a sense, this is the debut arc of Hiei as we know him, the three-dimensional anti-hero, as opposed to the flat, villainous character that we saw before. And Hiei really is the saving grace of this arc. Seeing his brand new dynamics with the three other main characters, his budding rivalry with Yusuke, his comedic rivalry with Kuwabara, and I always respected the fact that Hiei was always Kurama's hype man from the very beginning. It's as if Hiei always knew that back in Demon World, Kurama was a big deal. And this is pretty impressive because I don't even think Togashi knew this at the time. That's just the type of writer he is. He just improvises and it works sometimes. As for the other good part of this arc, I at least kind of respect the concept that Togashi was going for. The main villains are based on the 4 Chinese symbols. And I guess if you're from an Eastern background, this would be kind of interesting to see, as we see Togashi plays with a lot of Eastern mythology within the Dark Tournament and a lot of its villains.
Dark Tournament was hardcore, because I think they got a wish. They was to get a wish granted, and they was gonna wish for the death of Yusuke and his friends, and the stakes was just so high in there. They went through a lot in that tournament because they had to fight a lot of matches without recovering from the last one. It was just rigged against them. It was crazy.
But compared to the other villains we'll see in the Dark Tournament arc, these villains are really weak. And I don't even mean in strength, I mean just in writing and concept. They're not that interesting. And the fights that we get between our 4 main characters, it introduces the template that we're going to get later on in the series. Kurama gets this intelligent, strategic fight. He's fighting a trickier opponent, and he has to use tactics and strategy to defeat them. We see that Kuwabara gets a more comedic.
But that makes it to me. That makes it interesting because they have to use. They can't. In Z they just punch everything. Not Z, but in and what's the name? Because even though because when Goku fought Frieza, he had to be strategic because Frieza was so much stronger than him. He had to be strategic in how he fought him until he turned Super Saiyan and just completely just overpowered him. But in some fights in Z, that's why I like the Dragon Ball Z tournaments, because they had to use skill in those tournaments. They couldn't just fight head to head because you have limitations. You fall out of the ring, you lost. Where you could be stronger than your opponent, but it doesn't matter. They can still ring you. They can still ring you out and beat you. So that's what I liked about Yu Yu Hakusho. Because I think I watched Z first and then got introduced to Yu Yu Hakusho, and that's how I fell in love with the dark tournaments and with other things. They had with their fights. A lot of their fights are like that. You had to be strategic. Just like I think at the beginning of this, UK won one of his fights with pure luck, but he fought Randor or something like that. The demon that was way more powerful than he was. But yeah, a lot of these fights they had to be. That's what made it interesting. Versus Jim just fighting head to head and just bam bam explosions, transformations, explosions. So I like that over that other stuff. That's why I say it's still 1,000 times better than Super, because you're not freaking. It's not just overpowering somebody with brute strength. It's just they have to actually use strategy.
Fight, and it ends up relying on him using his willpower in the end, which is a big part of Kuwabara's fights. Hiei gets a quick and brief fight, which makes him look super cool, which is a trend with Hiei fights. And finally, Yusuke gets the toughest fight, where he has to dig the deepest, and he has to unlock a certain level of emotion, which is kind of an overarching theme with his character, emotion being the key to winning his fights. But in this arc, it really doesn't work that well, because this is the first time we're seeing it, so it seems like more of an ass pull. And this is the arc that actually sets it up so that the other times it works, as we've seen the Dark Tournament, the other emotional power-ups actually work because of this setup. So pretty much every other fight we see in the Dark Tournament forward is better than the fights we get here. Even the animation in the anime and the art in the manga are better for the later fights in the series. It's only natural that...
Well, they had to get better and better as they drew the story, so I don't have a complaint about that.
Togashi would get better with time. So the Beast of Maze Castle sits at the...
And this same guy that wrote Hunter x Hunter, so Hunter x Hunter is a good series too. Hunter x Hunter is a really good series. That's... My goodness. And I could tell that his influence is all up in Hunter x Hunter. That's a really good series. If anybody hadn't seen that one either. Really good series.
Very bottom as the worst entry in Yu Yu Hakusho. In 7th place, we have the Artifacts of Darkness arc. This arc features Yusuke's first mission as a spirit detective, to recover the 3 artifacts of darkness.
I ain't too much care about this one either. It was interesting, but I could skip it. You know.
That has been stolen by the 3 demons, Goki, Kurama, and Hiei. Now this one is actually the very first action-centric arc in the entire series, so naturally the preceding arcs will surpass it in this aspect. Especially Yusuke's first battle against the demon Goki. This one is so rough I suspect most people completely forgot about it. The saving grace of this arc is that it introduces 2 of our main characters, Kurama and Hiei. Like I said before, Hiei was pretty one-dimensional in this arc, as he was never intended to be a protagonist at first, but the Kurama section especially is good, because while the action was rough early on, the series has had heart from the very beginning. Instead of fighting, Kurama asked for Yusuke's help in order to use the artifact to save his mother's life, and with Kurama's flashback we get a very unique character concept. Instead of being a human with a demon sealed inside of him, Kurama's a demon inside of a human body. This is a pretty unique inversion, and I made an entire video dissecting Kurama's character. So while this arc isn't the greatest, it's the foundation in which Kurama, Hiei, and Yusuke as a spirit detective springs from. Next up, in 6th place, is the Yusuke's Ordeal arc. If you only watched the anime and you didn't read the manga, you're missing out on like half of this arc, because they cut out so much adventures that Yusuke had in his spirit form that he didn't have in the anime version. And the reason why it's so important is because Yusuke's arc at the very beginning was about him using violence as a coping mechanism. So when he becomes a ghost, this coping mechanism is stripped away from him. So Yusuke has to learn to solve problems non-violently, and we see this throughout Yusuke's adventures during his time as a ghost. I understand why they cut a lot of this out, because Yu Yu Hakusho is mainly a battle shonen. Even though the art style and everything looks shoujo in the beginning, by the end, it's mainly known as a battle shonen first and foremost. So you really don't want the viewers getting the wrong impression and dropping the show. But it's essential for Yusuke to learn how to solve problems non-violently and realize that he's actually a good person before you're able to reintegrate the battle aspects and have Yusuke finally become worthy to be the spirit detective. So for that reason, this arc is in 6th place, which is good. It's a great foundation for the character of Yusuke and the themes that
all the arcs are good. It's just even though this one was slow, I kind of liked it, because I guess it showed that even though Yusuke, you kind of wanted to see him come back to life, you know. And then after all the character development, you seen how him and Kuwabara kind of became closer, because he went from beating Kuwabara up on a regular, but during the whole spirit thing, when he was still a spirit, he kind of bonded with he became fond of Kuwabara. You know what I'm saying? They kind of became close because he had to help him pass the test, and then he stopped Kuwabara from beating up the teacher and getting expelled from school. And it was some different. It's kind of how he made friends with Kuwabara. So there was a bonding there. It's certain things that's in there that was kind of needed for the show to progress into the next arcs.
the story's trying to present. Next up, in 5th place, we have Genkai's Tournament. This arc is really good, not because it has great themes or anything like that, but because it has great character dynamics.
Oh yeah, Genkai's Tournament was one of my favorites. That's when he had to fight the Randor, the demon. At the end, Yusuke had to fight the demon at the end. It's one of my favorite arcs here.
And it's just really fun to watch. From the very start of the series, Kuwabara and Yusuke have been a great duo, and I always wondered if Araki...
And again, if you hadn't watched this show in a while or don't know what I'm talking about, we can go over the arcs. There's a video where he goes over each arc. But this Yu Yu Hakusho is a great anime, so I wanted to slide one of their videos in there because we talk about everything over here.
Araki had copied Togashi when he wrote Okuyasu and Josuke in part 4, because these characters have the same exact personality, I think. In this arc, we also get introduced to Genkai, who also has a great dynamic with Yusuke. And out of the 3 tournament arcs we get in the series, this one is probably the least monotonous, given the fact that it's the first one, and it has different phases and different games within it, other than just one-on-one fighting. And while the one-on-one matches in this arc are very interesting, a lot of the Reiki users have a lot of different interesting techniques, The fact that Kuwabara and Yusuke win is honestly so unbelievable. These Reiki masters are getting defeated by these literal 14-year-old noobs at Reiki. It makes no sense, honestly. This arc has the
Well, I think Kuwabara and Yusuke fought all the time. I think Yusuke already had a lot of levels of some levels of unnatural strength. Kuwabara is pretty strong too, cause he said one of the guys, yeah, in order to get beat up by Yusuke every day, he had to be pretty tough. And one of the guys, he all the Kuwabara did was fight. So did Yusuke. So they use violence as coping mechanisms. So, but they were newer, but their bodies, what Kuwabara said with one guy, he said, your punches barely hurt. I can barely feel any of your punch. Your licks don't even hurt me, because dude was just wailing on Kuwabara, wailing on. So your licks don't even hurt me. So, even though it's unbelievable, I still enjoyed it.
the most ass pulls, especially in his final fight against Rando. First of all, the whole mystery villain subplot with Rando was so obvious. Of course, the most innocent looking guy is going to be the demon at the end of the day.
Yep, that's a classic Toriyama thing to do. That's a Toriyama thing to do. Toriyama does that, but I think this guy probably does the same thing. But that's something Toriyama would do. But Toriyama would leave him in that form and make him the strongest, or that would be his final form, and he'd be so overpowering and deadly. That's what Toriyama would do. Cause this guy, he changed into another type of demon. This wasn't his final form, but Toriyama would probably make this guy the final form.
Rando's bag is so deep with all these different abilities, but Yusuke pulls out ass pull after.
Just like he wanted to make the androids the final. He wanted to make the androids the villain, but his editor's like, no. But see, this is what he transforms into. So, but I like this. You know what I'm saying? I like the character design. Watch this.
Aspel in order to
I like
finally
his
defeat him in the end. But the fact that Yusuke wins and earns the right to train with Genkai kind of makes up for it because
I like the demon design. You know.
After he trains with Genkai, every other victory in the series feels more earned from this point forward. So while there's a lot of ass pulls in this arc, it introduces us to Reiki as a power system and the different things that it can do, and at no point can you really say it's boring. So that's why I'd put it at 5th place. It's still a really good arc. Now in 4th place, we have the Three Kings arc. Now it's very difficult to rank the Three Kings arc because it has some of the worst moments in the entire series, but it also has some of the best moments in the entire series and the best character writing. The start of the Three Kings arc is incredible. With the opening of the Demon Portal at the end of the Chapter Black arc, this arc starts with the Three Kings of Demon World recruiting our protagonist for an upcoming war. Kuwabara is left out of this arc because he's kind of the odd one out now that Yusuke has also become a demon, but the great character work that we get for Yusuke, Kurama, and Hiei during this arc fully makes up for it. This is easily the best arc for Hiei and Kurama. We get Hiei's full backstory, showing that he's an outcast in every respect, and how that helps him relate with Mikuro. And also Kurama's dynamic with Yomi is top tier. Yomi being someone who looked up to Kurama back when he was a bad guy, but now has surpassed him in villainy, yet he's literally blind to the human that Kurama has become, and expects him to serve as his right-hand man. This arc also resolves Yusuke's character arc, with him integrating his shadow side, and integrating his human and demon aspects together. The big problem with this arc though, is because of Togashi's issues, he's kinda just gives up on this whole war story that he was planning out, and he just turns it into a tournament arc, which he even off-screens in the manga, and it's only in the
Well, I like how it happened in the anime because Yusuke kind of changed his mind. Man, look, let's just do a tournament instead of having a war and all this bloodshed and violence. Let's do a tournament to decide, who should be king. I like that whole aspect of it.
Anime that we get to see these final fights and character moments play out. This arc has so much wasted potential. I think if Togashi had followed through with the war arc idea, this could have been one of the greatest arcs in shonen history.
I don't know.
In my Three Kings arc dissection video,
because it helped. Excuse me. It was kind of a change of heart for the king. That's why I liked it. I like the change of heart kind of stuff. The ones that feel earned, not just that butt pull stuff. It's just randomly I'm a good guy, but no, I like the way it was done. If you have to watch the Three Kings arc to see what I'm talking about.
I proposed my rewrite if Togashi had followed through with the idea, and a lot of people seem to love it, which just shows how much potential this arc had. So if this arc ever gets a remake, I hope they give Togashi the chance to come back to this arc and complete it the way he intended, similarly to what they're doing with the
Nah, I like it. I like the way it is.
Thousand Year Blood War arc in Bleach. Togashi is currently in the middle of the most complex and sophisticated arc in shonen history right now, with the Succession War arc in Hunter x Hunter. So if he had another go at the Three Kings War arc, there's no doubt in my mind that it would be legendary. But we're ranking it based on what is and not what could be. So for that reason, this arc is in 4th place. In 3rd place, we have the Rescue Yukina arc. Just like the Genkai's tournament arc, this arc starts with a lot of interesting and fun dynamics between Yusuke and Kuwabara as they raid Tarukane's mansion in order to rescue Yukina. But on top of that, this arc actually has a very interesting plot, with the Black Book Club betting on Yusuke and Kuwabara's fights. And this arc also introduces a lot of things that will be essential in the Dark Tournament arc and beyond, like the goated duo of younger Toguro and Sakio, and the introduction of Yukina as Hiei's younger sister. Sakio conning Tarukane and placing himself as the mastermind villain, and Toguro easily flexing on Yusuke, placing him as the big physical villain, sets these two up to be the perfect antagonists for the end of the Dark Tournament arc. One of the fights is a little bit controversial, but I really cannot see any fault with this arc. The final 2 arcs that we'll be ranking just happen to come after this arc and have the privilege to build onto this and get to be much more grand and
Dark Tournament was my favorite, hands down. Well, only 2 left were Sensui, I think, and Sensui and this one, the Dark Tournament. They were my 2 favorite though.
iconic because of that. In 2nd place, the 2nd best arc in Yu Yu Hakusho, now you're gonna have to hear me out, is the Dark Tournament arc. This arc is not only considered to be the best arc in Yu Yu Hakusho, but the best tournament arc in any shonen period. Now I can
To me, it was. Oh yeah.
rank shonen tournament arcs in its own video, but I think the reason why the Dark Tournament gets such a good rep is that it's the purest and most authentic form of a tournament arc. It doesn't get interrupted halfway like the Chunin exams or abridged like a lot of these modern tournament arcs in anime. Togashi lets the full thing play out in 50 chapters from beginning to end. The Dark Tournament is the ultimate tournament arc. The teams move forward in a bracket like
Because the stakes in the tournament were high enough to warrant your attention throughout the whole arc. And the stakes kept raising. And it was just, man, it was good.
elimination format, yet the members of each team have one
300 subs, guys. If you give me 300 subs, I will roast. I'll roast Dragon Ball. I'll find either a content creator or somebody to roast Dragon Ball. I need 300 subs. Cause y'all know it ain't no y'all. I know y'all want me to roast Dragon Ball and stuff like that. There ain't enough content out here. Ain't no, Dragon Ball ain't got enough content for me to be roasting and trashing all the time. There's only so much roasting you can do before you just get tired of trashing something. And but you give me 300 subs. Give me the 300. I roast every 100 subs y'all give me. I roast Dragon Ball. I dig up some content for that.
1v1s in a gauntlet-like format. It's like each fight in the tournament is a tournament in of itself, and Togashi even switches it up sometimes. Sometimes having some members being gone, sometimes having the teams being uneven, sometimes even having it just be a battle royale. I would say that the downside of this is that because there are so many brand new characters, it kind of gets monotonous at a certain point in the tournament. The Dark Tournament is so long, it takes up almost half of the entire series, but before the arc reaches its climax, Togashi starts to develop the story of Yusuke, Genkai, and Toguro. No matter what you think of the arc as a whole, the Dark Tournament easily has the best final round in any tournament arc that I've seen. Yusuke's hero's journey comes full circle, and with Genkai's death, he's finally able to unleash his full emotions and defeat Toguro, who in of himself is one of the greatest shonen villains and a perfect foil for Yusuke. The biggest con I would say this arc has definitely is Genkai's death being reversed at the end. It kind of undermines the hero's journey and the death of the mentor, which is such an important part of any story. But otherwise, the Dark Tournament arc is easily one of the greatest arcs in shonen and one of the best in Yu Yu Hakusho. Even if it's not your personal favorite tournament arc, it is easily the quintessential shonen tournament arc. For many people, this is the #1 arc, but I put it in 2nd place because I just think the next arc is simply a little bit better. And in 1st place, the greatest arc in Yu Yu
I knew it. I knew he was gonna pick Sensui.
Hakusho, in my opinion, is the Chapter Black arc. Coming off the heels of the high-stakes, highly climactic Dark Tournament arc, Togashi must have felt the pressure to try to one-up it with an even stronger and more tough opponent than Toguro. But Togashi made the smart choice in my opinion, by de-escalating the story, and instead of making the characters physically stronger in a linear sense, Togashi widened the scope of what characters can do by introducing the power system of territories, which was highly inspired by stands in JoJo's. This new power system makes each one of these early fights much more unique than the fights in the Dark Tournament arc. For example, the Doctor fight was probably one of the best episodes in Yu Yu Hakusho, with such great animation and atmosphere, and it challenged Yusuke not physically like a lot of the Dark Tournament fights did, but each one of these fights challenges him ideologically. For example, this Doctor fight forces Yusuke to make the choice to kill a human for the first time. In the Seaman fight, Kuwabara wins not through fighting, but by winning him over through his kindness. The Game Master fight forces Kurama to tackle the trolley problem in real time, pitting the life of a child against the fate of humanity. And each one of these fights are carefully organized by Sensui to prove his point. And speaking of Sensui, he's by no means inferior to Toguro as a villain. If Toguro's character explores the evil of neglecting your humanity, Sensui's character builds on that foundation by questioning whether humanity is a good thing in the first place. I think that's the best part about this arc. It just builds on all the themes and everything that has been established before, like the Demon World portal that was hinted at in the Dark Tournament arc, becoming the central plot point of this Chapter Black arc. Definitely the worst part of this arc to me was the ending, especially Yusuke's transformation into a demon, which I found to be sort of an ass pull because I don't think there's been enough foreshadowing of it. But while it doesn't serve as a good ending to the Chapter Black arc, it does set up some interesting things for the Three Kings arc. But ultimately, the reason why I put Chapter Black above the Dark Tournament arc is because I just think it has a better through line throughout the entire arc. The depth of the Dark Tournament arc only really came out in the third act when Genkai met with Toguro. To me, the Chapter Black arc is way more rewatchable than the Dark Tournament arc. At no point to me does it get monotonous. Chapter Black is my personal favorite arc, so there's a little bit of bias.
My favorite part of this arc is when his ancestor took over his body. Said, "You don't know how to use your power. Let me show you." And he went ham on Sensui.
Here, this is probably not an objective list, but let me know what you think in the comments below. What is the ranking of arcs in your opinion? But the real question is, do you agree with me that the Chapter Black arc is the greatest arc, or do you think it's the Dark Tournament arc? Because no matter what, that's usually going to be the top two arcs. But feel free to surprise me in the comments below. This was more of a free-form video. I've already made an in-depth scripted analysis of every Yu Yu Hakusho arc and the three main characters and the two main villains of Sensui and Toguro. So make sure you check out that analysis here.
Yeah, we could check out his channel. I'll put the link in the description and all that stuff, all that good stuff. Just check his channel out. If you want to check out the arcs and stuff, we can go over them on my channel too. But that's it for right now. Let's see. Yeah, I will catch you guys next. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Y'all like Yu Yu Hakusho? Did you hate it? Did you all that other stuff? You know. You already know the fancy stuff. Like the subscribe button. 300 subscribers now. Dragon Ball Roast equals Dragon Ball Roast, okay? Catch y'all later.